My work experience has been in the private sector as well as the not-for-profit. And my private sector experience was in mostly mining and oil and gas. And so recently, though, I'm in the ocean and marine space. Well, I see it as, sort of deeply rooted obstacles that, they can be cultural, they're part of organizations, they're things that have been there for a long time. It's not necessarily just outward discrimination, but because they're there, they prevent groups like women from actually advancing in leadership roles. You go into a meeting and there's a mixed group of people, and people will tend to approach the man, or ask the man and assume that he's the boss. And that happened to me once, and the man who was working for me just responded and said, "Well, I don't know, you have to ask her because she's the boss." And so it's just, right, these biases, and it's those are the things that have to change, right? And looking back over my career, I realize now, because back then there weren't even terms like mentors, but I was very fortunate in that early on in my career I did have very strong male mentors and leaders who supported me, and they were very good about putting me out in terms, or like putting me out in front of clients and potential clients. When I had something to say, they made sure that I was the one out front doing it. And, looking back, that was a really good opportunity. At the time, it was like I was being fed to the wolves almost, right? But now I realize it was all with the intention of giving me the experience to have a voice in a room that was filled with men. And most of them, were older men as well, because the industries that I've got experience in are very male-dominated. Leadership to me is really a process of self-development. And it's, there are people who you might think might be natural born leaders, but I really believe that leadership skills are things that can be learned. And when I think of there's a lot of skills that are important, but some of the most important skills would probably be, to me, authenticity and empathy. And I think it's really important to be your authentic self, and that's just going to help attract a team that really understands you. You'll be much more better if you have some empathy and you understand what motivates your team, especially if it's a diverse team. I think that women really bring those skills more naturally to the table than men. And it's not to say that men aren't, but just in my experience, women tend to be collaborators, so they're willing to bring in diverse views and hear from others who necessarily you wouldn't have a voice, or they wouldn't be at the table. It's going to take time to see permanent and lasting change, but women are, we're 50% of the population. We should be represented at least 50% in careers. So one of the things is just when we're looking to hire people, I think if we have women who are on hiring committees, for example, then we look outside of the traditional pipeline. When men want to hire someone, they'll look where they've always looked. And so we need to have a woman who says, no, this is where we need to look if we want to recruit women. Back to the systemic problems, some of it is just that the pipeline is full of people who have operational experience, and they're the ones who get promoted. But in industries, such as mining or shipbuilding, typically there aren't women in these pipelines in the operational roles to come up through leadership. So it's really spectacular when there is a woman who has done these things and is a leader, and then other people can see that, wow, I didn't know a woman could be president of a shipbuilding company, for example. So really having these role models out there, and my goal as a mother of 2 daughters is that one day they'll be able to look anywhere they want and see themselves without having to say, hey, I didn't know I could do that. I just want them to be able to do anything that they want and it be as natural as anything to do so.